shalom, shalom, shalom. Let me pull this up. Shalom, 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 shalom. Alright, hey, shalom, shalom, Yasha Allah, Bakarnam, Yasha Allah. You know, of course, we back again through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Kal. That's right, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, HaKodash. Of course, Kal Halal, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua. Double honors to our apostles and elders, a great millstone, shalom and salutation. To all you sincere occupants across the four winds, pushing this truth with sincerity of heart as always. GMS Truth Sent, the diaspora, we back through the spirit. You know, it took a week or two to kind of galvanize the spirit, you know, get more information, jump on a new topic, which should be really sweet. This one is really good. It's really, really good and informative. Kasama Gun, DC Camp.
So you're an hour?
And through the spirit, we're just going to dive into it. As you see right here, the Hebrew Israelites Diaspora, that is the title of the sit down that we've been doing with the, you know, I've been doing with the brother through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. And the subtitle is the Expulsion, because we're going off Babylon and Timbuktu, so put that up.
Right.
You know, that's the standard in which we're going into. You know, the Bible, the Lord says, study to show thyself approved. So you got to study the word, and you got to get into the history. That's right. You know, because if you don't know about the history of your people, what is that? Let me Job 8 and 8. If you don't know about the history of your people, then you can't teach your people. Why? Because what is the nation of Israel? The nation of Israel is a lost people. You know, all the children of Israel were lost. That's right. You know what I'm saying? Now, back in the ancient times, the Lord said, I'll come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Because back then, some of Israel still had kept their nationality, the knowledge of who they were. But it came upon a time where the Lord said, Jeremiah 17:4, you know, we as Israelites, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, shall discontinue from the heritage that he gave us. So it's only after a long period of time, you know, where the nation of Israel went to sleep, it's in the 60s that the Spirit of the Lord started working again through a man called, named Abba Bibbins, which we know through the Spirit to be the spirit of Elijah and John the Baptist. That was meant to be sent always, which he's always been sent before the arrival of the Lord. That's how we know through the Spirit that that's him. Shalom to y'all occupants. Y'all about Shema Shabbat. So now, back in the 60s, that's when the awakening of Israel happened again. You know, and it went down from High Priest Ariah, of course, King Mashak, you know, which is Malak. We know he is the spirit of King David, and of course, Elder Yaquab, and so on and so forth, on down to our present elders and apostles of Great Millstone, man. Apostle Tahar on down. So now we got the knowledge, and now when you move forward, I think the brothers just sent a text we got next. Now when we move forward, we understand that the Heavenly Father said that he was going to do something that was going to be mind-blowing to the nation of Israel. You know, he was going to scatter the nation of Israel, and then he's going to have spirits being scattered. Another word for scattering is diaspora, right? Dispersed. He was going to have Israelite spirits be dispersed amongst the heathens, and then he was going to use the prophets to bring all of his elect out of these nations, man. You got it?
If I may.
You got something?
It's Malachi 4 verse 5. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord.
That's right. That's right. Elijah, the spirit of Elijah is the same as the spirit of John the Baptist. You know what I'm saying? It's the same spirit. I want to say somebody else, but that might be too deep for them. You know, we keep that. You know, because the matter of reincarnation is you must know, but you must know in your due time. But you must know these things so you can get the full understanding. You know. Go ahead.
This is Job 8 verse 8. For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers.
That's right. Prepare yourself for the search of your fathers, and that's exactly what we're doing. Of course, we know our forefathers to be Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Sure. But we also have to know about the fathers in the middle, the fathers that fell off, and what they gotten into. You know, we went into the Moors, and then we're gonna. You know, we're going to get some more of the Moorish Empire, so on and so forth. So we got to get these things, understand where our fathers, you know, where they went, what they did, and how we ended up in the situation that we ended up on. And that's how the elect that are scattered across the four winds are able to awake and build confidence and know through the Spirit that they are indeed, you know what I'm saying, Israelites, man.
Let me say this. And shalom to the Akim out there, you know, watching, all the Akim. And I just want to say to the brother we got next, Mac. We on 9th and G Street, Northwest in DC. Also, if you were to type in the old MLK Library in DC, we're right there on the corner, so you can't miss it.
Gallery Place, Chinatown.
Yep.
And so that's the main spot. Once you get to Gallery Place, Chinatown, 9th and G is right on there. You know, the Verizon Center. You'll see us, the Spirit, you know, the Spirit will guide you. So, shalom to you, brother. I got a precept. This is Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 3. It says, that then the Lord, thy power, well, I'm going to start at 2. It says, and it, you know what, now I'm going to start at 1. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1. It says, and it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy power has driven thee. So it was a curse that, you know, for us to be scattered. Shalom, Zaquan. It was a curse of the Lord that the nation of Israel be scattered amongst the nation. But it says that what? It says, and thou shalt call them to mind. What does that mean? Thou shalt call them to mind.
That's right.
Can you get that scripture, brother? Stir up the mind.
Pure minds by way of remembrance.
Come on, Peter's. I think it's 2 Peter's 2. Maybe 1 Peter 2 or 2 Peter's 2 and 1. So I'm reading the scripture again. Deuteronomy chapter 30 and 1. It says, and it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy power has driven thee. You know, and what you understand is that in every nation, would it be the Moabites and Ammonites, the Moabites being the Chinese, the Ammonites being the Japanese, the Hamites being the Africans, the natural-born Africans, Ishmaelites being so-called Arabs, Elam being so-called Persians, so on and so forth. When you go into these places, when you travel and you go into these places, there's always a segment of the population that's living in the ghettos and the slums, you know, and they look like everybody else for the most part, but their situation seem to always be fucked up. And although they kind of look like everybody else, they always seem, it's always like, oh, you know, in Persia, these Persians, we call them this and this and that.
Word.
You're like, bro,
a byword.
Yeah, a byword. You're like, why are you calling this particular segment of the Persian race this particular word? Why are you calling this particular segment of the Moabite nation this particular byword? Why? Because these are the Israelite souls that are going through the curses in Deuteronomy, man. They're going through the curses among the nations, and they have no idea why they're going through it. You know what I'm saying? But we know because we're the prophets, so we out here to tell them, if they're able to see it, if the Spirit is revealing this to them, that, hey, you are a Hebrew Israelite, and you could potentially be a part of the election.
This is 2 Peter 3 and 1. This second epistle, beloved, I now write unto you, in both which I stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance.
That's right. Stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance. So who gets to stir up your pure minds? It's a process. It starts with Yahweh Shem Yahshua and you know, Baal HaKodesh and the Holy Spirit through the prophets, you know what I'm saying, the men of the Lord. The ones that are sent forth. You know, Shalak Akims, you know, sent for, the Akims that are sent. Now, going back to Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2, it says, and shalt return unto the Lord thy power, and shall obey his voice according to all that I commend thee this day, thou and thy children with all thine heart and with all thy soul. Verse 3, that then the Lord thy power will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations.
Yeah, turn our captivity, meaning take it off of us, man.
That's right.
And then what? And gather us from all the nations, man. Meaning what? We were scattered amongst all the nations.
That's right.
And gather us what? And bring us back into our land. All right?
That's right. And it says, the Lord will have compassion upon thee. The word compassion means with suffering. You know, calm means with, passion means to suffer. So that's why we said there's always a segment of a population in all these races or nations that are always suffering. Why? Because they're Israelites. Man, Israelites by nature, the spirit within them is an Israelite spirit that's caught up in the appearance of a heathen flesh, pretty much heathen flesh, right? Because there's a separation between the spirit and the flesh. You must know that. Again, Deuteronomy 30:3, it says that then the Lord thy power will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy power has scattered thee. Verse 4, if any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy power gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. So now we're going to go straight to the topic on how Israelites, so-called Negroes, a few Hispanics, might have been also a few Native Americans, but this history mostly goes into the Southern Kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and a few of the Northern Kingdom, Simeon, you know what I'm saying, that were during the scattering, the diaspora fled into places such as Spain. We talked about the building of the Moors. So this is going towards the end of that. This is going into the end of the rulership of the Moors. And also we're going to talk about the fact that the Moors weren't the only Negroes, so-called Negroes, knowing they had, a Jewish, not Jewish, Israelite background, with knowledge of an Israelite background, So we're going to, get into that.
Yeah. Because what we were talking about before we put the camera on was that you have all these people that talk about the Moors ruled the Dark Ages, which they did. But they were the known majority that ruled the Dark Ages. But you gotta understand that wasn't every last so-called Negro back then.
That's right.
It was parts of us that still knew that we was Israelites. All right. So to say that every last one of us was Moors was ridiculous, man. And then even so, a Moor was a term given to them by the Arabs.
That's right.
Separating them, once again the byword, separating them, telling them that those are Negroes or niggas, by the way, that's into Islam. But their nationality was still Israelites.
That's right.
Just in the doctrine of Islam.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, brother, you got
picture.
Yeah. You could pull up Spain, pull up Spain and the map, where you can see the location is Spain.
Right here.
Yep. And then you also got Portugal, right?
Come.
Alright, let's get into it. Okay, pull that up and we're going to get the reading.
Come. This is page 115 in from Babylon to Timbuktu, the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and Portugal. It was AD 1492, January 2nd, when the Moorish stronghold of Granada surrendered to the armies of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella.
Right, which we went into Granada and Cordoba, these great cities, in the previous show, and that's what we said. Now we're going into the fall of the Moorish Empire, and the fact that we already established, we know without a shadow of a doubt, the Moors were Israelites, so-called Negroes. Saying a few Hispanics that was in the midst, with mostly so-called Negroes that were involved into Islam and pushing Islam with the sword, just like Muhammad.
Right. It says
But King Ferdinand, now look up King Ferdinand.
Got it right here. And this is pictures of who they have King Ferdinand as well as this is Christopher Columbus.
The man who made deals with, what's that, Queen Isabella?
Right.
And
King Ferdinand.
King Ferdinand. So you can clearly see that we going into what? The Renaissance, the rebirth, the transition is happening. You know what I'm saying? The transition is happening because that's about 1492. That's where the slavery, the transatlantic slave comes right under that period of time, a few years after. But as we're going to find out, the first crop of slaves came from where? Spain, as we're going to find out. So the transition is happening now. Now we going into Israelites well, actually, we going into that. Let me get that on Revelation. Revelation 20, after 1,000 years.
Yep.
This is what we're going into. This part of the scattering is where the Heavenly Father, because we remember we read earlier in the past show that the Lord despised the excellency of Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Jacob was out here ruling as a Moors under different other doctrines.
Mm-hmm.
So the Heavenly Father was always going to bring us down if we try to rise up with a different doctrine. So now he's setting up Edom Esau. You got it?
Let me go straight to the point. It's Revelation 20 verse 3. And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him,
break it down,
that he should not deceive the nations no more. And guess what? That's what the bottomless pit is talking about. Europe.
That's right.
All right, because why is the bottomless pit a place that has limited resources?
Pull that up. Pull up the European, the whole European map, and read that scripture again, Marcus.
Let's see.
Well, actually, you know what? No, just stick with that. You know what? So like
Spain.
Yeah, stick with that because that's what we at. It's part of Europe. You know, that's the bottomless. That's part of that the bottomless pit.
Okay.
So we don't have to necessarily take the whole. You know, get the whole European map, but you know, brothers get it. But
he said, verse 3, and cast him into the bottomless pit. That him is talking about Esau. All right. It's not talking about just one person. They think it's talking about the spiritual demon Satan. Nah. All right. It said, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more. And you know, that wasn't talking about the spiritual demon Satan, man. It's talking about Esau, man. Esau deceives the nations with his philosophies and doctrines, man. All right? It was time for him to go into slavery. It says, remember that Satan is one of the angels of the Lord, and they run to and fro on the earth. So it's not talking about him. It says that he should deceive the nations no more till 1,000 years should be fulfilled. Meaning 1,000 years should be completed.
That's right.
That's all fulfilled means to be completed. All right? And it says, and after that he must be loosed a little season. So after he were to spend his 1,000 years in captivity, part of that coming out of that was around when the 1300s.
Yep.
Because it was like a it wasn't like an instant come out of slavery. Like they was gradually coming out of slavery.
moving up in the ranks, especially in the religious aspect
right.
of it, because they took over when they started. When Edom Esau rose up and started to take over the rulership and so on and so forth. They did it in a political manner and financial manner, but most importantly, it was through the church. Right. You know, that's when you get Alexander the Sixth Pope of Rome, because prior to that, the popes were really always known as what? Black popes. Right. So-called. That was the name. They were called black popes for a reason, because that Christianity stuff really going back to Constantine, right? 1,000, about 800 years probably. It started with what? The black popes, with Negroes utilizing and using paganism and mixing it up with the scriptures.
So anywhere circa around the 300s AD, leading all the way up to the 1300s AD, circa around the times. We saying around those times of the 1,000 years, and slowly they got Jake completely up out of there. Because remember, even later on in the 1400s, you got King James era.
That's right.
Which he's a so-called Negro. All right.
That's right.
All right. So it says, verse 4, and I saw the thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for to witness of Yahushua, and for the word of the Most High. In which, now this is a jump here. All right. Just throwing that out there. In which would Salakia, and for the word of the Most High, in which had not worshipped the beast, nor his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, showing you that there's a jump, because they didn't have the mark of the beast back then. That's right. They didn't have the microchip back then. So it's showing you that this particular one is a jump. All right. It says upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Yahushua 1,000 years, and that's in the kingdom. We lived and reigned with Yahushua for 1,000 years. Meaning, you know, we're going to have what rulership with Yahushua and have the other nations in slavery for 1,000 years. Because really, we're going to be ruling with Yahushua forever. Yeah, the 1,000 years just really means thousands. You know, because you know you're not gonna, as you brothers know, you're not gonna find the word millions, or trillions, or billions in the Bible. Right. You know, those are modern day Esau. You know, made up, because the Most High speaks in thousands. Right.
You notice that?
To 1,000 generations.
Yeah, the Lord doesn't speak in millions and billions and quadrillions and all that crap.
With 200 million missiles, is 200,000.
Right.
That's our zeros.
Right. That's because it doesn't say 200 million missiles in the Bible. That's how, you know, through the Spirit we have to break it down so that Israelite men can understand the quantity.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, of what that actually means.
Right. Or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Yahushua 1,000 years. Right. Verse 5. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Like in the kingdom, the rest of the dead talking about the heathen.
That's right.
All right. They lived not again, meaning they was in complete utter slavery, and they couldn't enjoy it. They're not going to enjoy it, man, for the first 1,000 years, man.
That's right.
All right.
Right, because they're gonna be our hardcore slaves. They're still gonna be tributaries, but we're gonna be giving them their lands and stuff like that. Yep. Some lands so they can, you know, because the nation of Israel, we're not Edom. We're not Edom Esau. Yep. But there must be retribution for the first 1,000 years for sure.
Exactly. That was.
Now go to look up. Let's get a little bit of history on King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella on Wikipedia. Just pull up Wikipedia. We read like the first paragraph. Just get a little bit of history. You know, like I said again, when we do these things, Akims, you know, don't expect to get the whole. You know, we give you pointers, a little bit of history here and there. We learn as you brothers is learning. You know what I'm saying, and we get a little bit of history. If you want to read more on your own time. You know, because that's just how it is. The men of the Lord are supposed to give you leads. You know. We're not supposed to. Even apostles always did. They always done that. Ever since we came up with the truth. The apostles they would give us the full lead, and they would tell you go and read so you can be persuaded in your own mind. Because you can't be a parrot. You can't just be out here regurgitating everything that a man says. And that's why the apostles always tell us, yo man, just go ahead and research, do study, study to show yourself approved. Man.
That's right.
You know, you will find out that your teachers are telling you the truth. The only way is to study. That's why regardless of what they say about our teachers, why do you think that we're so strongly, you know what I'm saying, we have this strong allegiance to Yahweh Bashim Shai and our teachers? Because everything that our teachers taught us, we went and looked it up. So it was grafted in our memory with confidence that these men didn't lie. They're not lying to me, because when I went and looked it up, I found out that was the truth. But if you're just sitting there and just gathering all the information but not looking it up for yourself, then when people bring out so-called personal things about your teachers that may or may not be true, your faith is going to be shaken.
That's right. This is Galatians 6 verse 4. But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another. Because it feels good when you research and you found out a breakdown, and you break it down for yourself after you've been taught it.
That's right.
It feels good for you to have the understanding, and then you can teach it confidently with faith.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
This is an article on Queen Isabella of France. It says 1295. Well, wait a minute. This might be a different Isabella.
Yeah. That's not the one we're looking for.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get that one. Let me go to. Let me try 1492.
Yeah, 14. Yep.
Castile. Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
There we go. All right, there we go.
How are you talking?
Isabel first. All right.
Yep, it says, Ferdinand. All right, there you go.
Yep, it says reigned as Queen of Castile from 1474 until her death. Her marriage to Ferdinand II of Aragon became the basis for the political unification of Spain under their grandson Charles I. After a struggle to claim her right to the throne, she reorganized the governmental system, brought the crime rate to the lowest it had been in years, and unburdened the kingdom of the enormous debt her brother had left behind. Her reforms and those she made with her husband had an influence that extended well beyond the borders of their united kingdoms. Isabella and Ferdinand are known for completing the Reconquista.
Click on that, because actually, copy and paste and put that on Edom Online.
Gotcha.
Copy and paste and put that on Edom Online. Watch what's gonna, because I know what that word is. You can see kind of what that word is, right?
Of course.
You know, they completed the Reconquista. What does that mean?
Well, it may not come up.
Right, but it might give you.
Oh,
there you go. There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
Reconquista, now from Middle French, reconquiste, cognate with Spanish, reconquista, again, right? But you know, re is again in conquest. Conquest, the defeat of an adversary.
Oh, so hold up. Who did they defeat? Who did they regain? Again. Spain. Who were the prior owners of the Spanish Empire that they took it back from?
Right.
It was, come on, man. Yeah. It's the history.
That's right.
It was your so-called Negroes lost into that bullshit, man.
Right.
Called being a Moorish Empire, man.
That's right.
Go ahead.
All right. On back. It says conquest, acquisition. Yeah, to acquire. Also from medieval Latin, conquistas, conquista. All right. Conquere, Latin, to search for, procure by effort, win.
To conquer.
Win. It says to conquer. Yep.
That's right. Now let's go back to Wikipedia and read a little bit about the Reconquista.
The Reconquista in Portuguese, Spanish and Portuguese for the Reconquest, is the name used to describe the period in the history of the Iberian Peninsula of about 780 years between the Umayyad conquest of Hispania in 711 and the fall of the Nazarite Kingdom of Granada.
Who's the Nazarite Kingdom of Granada?
That's right.
That we just read. Those are the Moors.
That's right.
Granada was that great city of the Moors, controlled by so-called Negroes, Israelites, lost in the sauce, lost in with the doctrines, you know, a false deity called Allah. That's when you get the Kingdom of Granada, man. Go ahead.
In the fall of the Nazarite Kingdom of Granada to the expanding Christian kingdoms in 1492.
That's right. So now go back to the original topic. Queen Isabella.
It says
yeah, read up to Christopher Columbus and the voyage.
It says Isabella and Ferdinand are known for completing the Reconquista, ordering conversion or exile of their Muslim and Jewish subjects, and for supporting and financing Christopher Columbus's 1492 voyage that led to the opening of the New World and to the establishment of Spain as the first global power which dominated Europe and much of the world for more than a century.
That's right. So now you see, it gives you that complete image of that history. How you had, when they said Muslim, they're talking about Negroes, you know, lost into their Islam, man. And then they talking about Jewish, like we talked about. You had Israelites that kept the customs of Jews. They wasn't calling themselves Moors. They tried to keep some of the customs. Then you had them so-called Jewats, Amalek, converts into Judaism, picked up the ways, and were also calling themselves Jewish.
Right.
So you had that dynamic going on. You know what I'm saying? So, but the thing is, when we looking from the way we looking from, Jake, just like Jake doesn't get the actual paintings, you know, of the images and the faces of the people. But you gotta, the Lord gotta, through the Spirit, create that image in your mind where you can see that, okay, in Spain, when it says Muslim, it's not talking about the Arab at that particular time. Because remember, a Muslim is a convert into Islam.
Right.
An Arab and a Muslim is two different things.
It's two different things.
So when it's talking about a Muslim, it's a convert into Islam. Yep. And who was those convert into Islam? It was Negroes who actually were Israelites that converted into what? Converted to Islam, man.
Who they had to again conquer.
That's right.
To get that land. And people think that Negroes, we wasn't anywhere, we wasn't doing anything. There's all them pictures of kings back then. It's just all Esau, all Edomites, man.
That's right.
Meanwhile, the white man had to again conquer it to get put back up in power.
That's right.
So, you know.
Precept. This is Psalms 44:9. It says, but thou, Psalms 44:9. It says, but thou hast cast off and put us to shame. Actually, I'm going to start at 8. If you can pull that scripture out. For sure. The screen. Psalms 44. I'm going to start at 8 all the way down to 13. Yeah, this is Psalm chapter 44, verse 8. It says, "In Yahweh Shemel Shah we boast all the day long and praise that name forever." Salah. Verse 9 it says, "But thou hast cast off and put us to shame, and goeth not forth with our armies." Right? The Lord wasn't with the armies of the Moors.
Right.
That's why they got their ass kicked. It says, "Thou makest us to turn back from the enemy, and they which hate us spoil for themselves. Thou hast given us like sheep appointed for meat, and hast scattered us among the heathen. Thou sellest thy people for naught, and dost not increase thy wealth by their price. Thou makest us a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and a derision to them that are round about us." You see that? So David's speaking about what's happened to the nation of Israel and why that 1,000 period happened the way it happened, how we fell off. You know? All right.
All right. Let's lock it. Bring this back up. Going into the book, it says, "For the first time since the year 711, all of Spain was in Christian hands. The decree to expel the Jews from Spain was signed on March 31st in one of the corridors of the great Alhambra, the palace of the Moorish kings of Granada."
Let me read a little bit on King, but you know what? Read a little bit on King Ferdinand, just a little bit, because I think after that it goes into King John of Portugal.
This is Ferdinand II, Aragon. It says from 1452 through the 23rd January 1516. Called the Catholic, was King of Sicily from 1468 and King of Aragon from 1479 until his death. The 1469 marriage of Ferdinand, heir apparent to the crown of Aragon, and Isabella of Castile, heir apparent to the crown of Castile, was the marital and political cornerstone and the foundation of the Spanish monarchy. As a consequence of his marriage to Isabella I, he was de jure Euraxis, King of Castile, as Ferdinand V from 1474 until her death in 1504. At Isabella's death, the crown of Castile passed to their daughter Joanna by the terms of their prenuptial agreement in her last will and testament. Following the death of Joanna's husband, Philip I of Spain, and her alleged mental illness, Ferdinand was recognized as regent of Castile from 1508 until his own death.
Let's end on that, because it goes into different things. You know, we just want to get like a little bit of history. First paragraph tells you like a synopsis of the man, and it tells you, you know, there's Edomites, man. Like I said, we coming into this is the time where Israel is being scattered and is getting ready to go into what? Into captivity, man. Why? Because again, worshiping other gods and having different idols.
And it says, for the first time since the year 711, all of Spain was in Christian hands. The decree to expel the Jews from Spain was signed on March 31st in one of the corridors of the great Alhambra, the palace of the Moorish kings of Granada. The reason given for the expulsion of the Jews was that it was thought they corrupted the Marranos, Jews converted to Christianity.
Precept, right quick. Going back to the Moors, because remember they were driven by Allah, you know, which is a false image. This is Jeremiah 10:14. It says, "Every man is brutish in his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by the graven image. For his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them." Right? Because it said his molten image is falsehood. Remember, we going into, because people always trip. I mean, it never cease. We never cease to encounter people that trip off that picture of Yahweh Shah. You know, and we always got to explain to them, listen, it's not something we don't worship that. You know what I'm saying? We don't worship that. But Jake doesn't understand the dynamic of images.
Right.
What the Lord actually, because the Lord expects you to read with understanding. He expects his prophets to break it down to you, as far as what image to worship. Because see, this is the thing with Jake. Jake just says, well, you're not supposed to worship no images. I'm like, well, what about the image in Genesis?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? See, Jake has been taught in this society like the word cult. Oh, you in a cult. That means straight up is negative. Oh, you got an image. It's a negative. It's, everything is just because of newspeak. But the prophet of the Lord has to tell you everything comes in duality, in twos, like it says in the scriptures. So that's why when you read that scripture again, Jeremiah 10:14, it says, every man is brutish in his knowledge, every founder is confounded by the graven image. Now, if you stop right there, it doesn't speak about the duality, right? It's just saying graven image. But see, it says, for his molten image is falsehood. Now it's saying, now his image is falsehood. Now, if his image is falsehood, it must be an image that's of righteousness.
It said molten image.
You understand what I'm saying? And that's what Jake, when you trying to explain it to Jake, they can't get it. When that's the answer, everything is made in two, right?
Right.
It says, and there is no breath in them. Now, this is an image. The word of Yahweh Shem Shah, which is Yahweh Shah, the scripture tells you Yahweh Shah is the invisible image of the Heavenly Father Yahweh. And it says, doesn't it say that in Habakkuk that the vision shall speak? Why? Because there is breath in this image.
That's right.
Come on, man. Why? Because Jake don't want to listen to the prophets, man. You just want to do your own thing.
That's right.
Well,
it says, the reason given for the expulsion of the Jews was that it was thought they corrupted the Marranos, Jews converted to Christianity, by probably encouraging them in disloyalty to Christianity. The ultimatum given to the Jews expired August 1st, 1492.
Right.
But the last group of Jews did not leave until August 2nd, 1492. This date is of strange coincidence. That day was the 9th of Ab, the fast day, which is reminiscent of the destruction of the first and second temples.
Right, and we spoke about that, how the expulsion of the Jews, you know, you got to understand, because there's history, you know, also about convert into Judaism being threatened for expulsion. But we focusing on the real Jews. Who are the real Jews? The so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. And how they were also being pressured to either change to Christianity and be expelled out of Spain and out of Portugal, as we're going to find out. And where are the places where these people landed? That's what we're going to find out. And it's going to be sweet. You going?
That's right. Put this back on. And it says, this date is of strange coincidence. That day was the 9th of Ab, the fast day which is reminiscent of the destruction of the first and second temples. Professor Alan H. Godby says that the reign of the last Jewish king of Granada terminated in 1492. In order to satisfy Queen Isabella of Spain, King Manuel of Portugal promulgated a royal decree expelling the Jews and Moors from his country in 1496.
Right. When he said something like that, expelling the Jews and Moors, now you got to go in the spirit and understand what it's talking about.
Right.
You got to go in this. You got to go in the spirit and understand what it's talking about. What is it talking about? You know, it's talking about we have to focus on the part where our people were getting, you know, kicked off and getting pushed, you know, out of Spain. Right. Now we're not focusing on them so-called Jewats, who's after conversion also was being expelled and expelled out of Spain or out of Portugal. Right. That history is there, but their history don't matter to us. Right. Because that's based on what? On falsehood, man. We worried about the nation of Israel that was scattered and that was kicked out of Spain and Portugal, and where they actually landed on. Because you're going to find out that this whole idea of every black man comes out of Africa is a bunch of bullshit, man. Right?
It says, Salaki for that.
You got to say it. You got to take it.
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
All right.
It says, the Jews who were expelled from Spain and Portugal were scattered throughout the Mediterranean coast. It is estimated that over 100,000 Jews departed from Spain and Portugal during the persecutions and the expulsion, some of those Jews went to northern Europe, Italy, and Turkey, but most of them went to Muslim countries of northern and western Africa.
Right, and see, that's the thing.
That's right.
That's why I said what I said about, read that last part again, Rockstar.
It says, some of these Jews went to northern Europe, Italy, and Turkey, but most of them went to Muslim countries of northern and western Africa.
Northern and western Africa. Right. So that's how you know this particular history is not talking about the so-called Jew rats like Columbus walking around calling themselves a Jew, you know, fleeing into Africa.
That's right.
It's not talking about.
That's
so
right.
who are those Jews who fled into the Muslim parts and who fled into Africa? Who are those being expelled? It was so-called Negroes. So exactly. That lets you know, and those Negroes didn't have attachment to the continent of Africa.
Right.
That's where they went. Those are that's part of the scattering.
And history will lie and tell you that those Jews, they won't even say Jews, they'll just say it was Africans.
Yeah.
It was Africans that were shipped out like that. In actuality, that was the Israelites, man.
That's right.
All right. They'll like we talked about, they'll switch up history and say the so-called Jews are the ones that got expelled out. All right, but they won't say the ones converted into Judaism. You know,
right.
Talking about the Amalekites.
That's right.
But then when it comes to us, they'll say the Africans. You see, that's why it's our job to bring it out to our people, man.
He's so fucking dumb,
right.
Man. This is our precept. This is Psalms 58:3. It says, the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. You know, it says their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear. So then, you know, their involvement into history, that's why it's imperative to go into history, man, because if you don't, then you're gonna have some Edomite so-called scholar, you know, show up at the camp trying to debate you and pull up dates. Well, you know, in 1492, the Jews who got expelled were actually, you know, we know them to be Jewish people, you know, such as Columbus, and if you don't know that history, you looking like, well, he could or couldn't be. But see, he would be right on the instance of that particular history of Amalek, falsely so-called Jews, right? Because they're being falsely called Jewish, being expelled when the true history, and well, the only history that was true and that really matters was the Moors, Israelites, Negroes converted into Islam, and others that did convert being expelled out of that land and being a primary group that was being chased out and expelled out of that land. So you need to have the history on both of those things. I don't know if you could say fake true history because it happened, but they weren't really the real Jews being expelled like Columbus. And then you had us, which were the real Jews, being expelled.
Just bringing out the truth.
Yeah, it's just you gotta know both sides.
Bringing out the truth, because even what the beautiful part about the way the Heavenly Father does things and how the Scriptures was written, even though the Scriptures is for Israel, the Lord doesn't put out what the other nations did.
That's right.
The Lord, like in our Scriptures, it doesn't lie and say that this people is another people. It doesn't lie and say that they're not this, they didn't do this. It don't even say it. It don't say the Romans were a great, you know, war. You know, First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, when the Romans came on. It'll tell you how they were valiant and stuff like that. We give credit where credit's due.
That's right.
So we just go to the Scriptures and dealing with Yahweh Shemel Shawn down. We just give you the truth, man.
That's right.
But these other the other nations, with the whole thing, his story, they go ahead and change it up.
They give you history on their
on
that's
the winning
favorable,
side.
That's favorable to their means, you know, with the things they want to accomplish, which is ultimately mind control. It's about government. You know, governing the mind.
That's right.
You know, so how do? You bring history that favors your side of things, you know, and not the true history for what it is. Because once you acknowledge that, hey, listen, we was walking around as fake Jews, then all of a sudden people say, well, then your history don't really matter like that. What truly matters is the real Jews that were walking around and being expelled. You know what I'm saying?
But many times in the Scriptures, well, Israel got demolished by other nations, man.
That's right.
And we put down It's in the scriptures how Israel got demolished and got killed by other nations, and we would put that the fact that it happened was because it's our fault.
Well, remember David, we read David said that. How he let our armies get their ass kicked, man.
But the so-called white man, when he loses a battle,
he changes it.
It's a massacre.
But not only that, when he loses a battle, he changes the actors, the people who want to see, and makes him himself. Meaning he's always winning.
Yeah.
He's never lost in history. This goddamn devil.
When we put that, we lost in our book.
So I got precept. It's Isaiah 25:7. It says, "And he will destroy." I'm gonna start at 6. In this mountain shall the Lord of hosts make unto all people a feast of fat things, a feast of wines on the lees, of fat things full of marrow, of wines on the lees where refined. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. Sure. So the Yahweh Shemel Shah, he's doing it right now. How is he doing that? Plain and simple. You go to Thessalonians. How is the Heavenly Father destroying the covering cast? Meaning the lies upon lies, man. They have withstood this damn. You got to give credit what's credit is due. This devil's been able to sustain lies for hundreds of years, man. That's a very difficult thing to do, man. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to distract people on all levels. How do you keep people away from true knowledge? How do you do that? You gotta come up with ways of distraction. But how is the covering cast being removed? This is how it's being removed right now. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7. It says, "For the mystery of iniquity," which the mystery of iniquity is Edom, Esau, the Edomites, and what they've done to history, man. It says to our history, really. It says this 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7. "For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way." The he that letteth, that's Yahweh Shemel Shah, because he's determined the bounds of Esau. Mm-hmm. So he won't stop Esau prematurely. Mm-hmm. And he will not allow Esau to keep going past his limits. Right. And then it says, until he, the other he that's talking about Edom, Esau, the mystery of iniquity. It says, until he be taken out of the way, meaning when his time comes, when he's going to be destroyed, right? It says, verse 8, it says, "And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth." Now, the spirit of the mouth of the Lord, it starts with the prophets. It starts with the prophets of the Lord revealing the true history, the scattering, the diaspora of Israel, letting you know that we're not Africans, we're not Hamites, we lived in that land, we migrated into that land, we were scattered into that land, right? We're not Europeans, although we lived in Europe. Some of us, man, when you go back to the history, some of us had never even been in Africa, man. Yep. Ever in our lives, man. We knew it was a continent where there was a lot of Hamites and so-called blacks, but some of us hadn't even set foot in that fucking continent, man.
Same thing with Jake over here now. You're no different, man. But they'll tell you everybody is black. Just got to go back to the continent. It's just stupid.
Hey, 2 Thessalonians 2 and 8, "And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming." So now let's go back, brother.
That's right. Going back into the book. All right. It says, the Jews who were expelled from Spain and Portugal were scattered throughout the Mediterranean coast. It is estimated that over 100,000 Jews departed from Spain and Portugal.
Now, Portugal, when it says Portugal, you got a lot of Israelites. Pull up right quick, brother, image. One of he's really the most popular Portuguese right now, known to man, the soccer player Ronaldo. You know what I'm saying? If you want to, because remember being an Israelite, the scripture said we're the salt of the earth. Go to, soccer player, Portuguese soccer player Ronaldo. It's going to show, go ahead. Now they put an image of the man. That's Ronaldo right here. For brothers that watch soccer, you got the World Cup going on. You got a lot of these nations. This dude right here, Ronaldo, he's really known as the best player, the best soccer player in the world. And he is of quote-unquote Portuguese descent. Now, if you see this dude play, the way he moves, the swagger that he has, he's actually even popular over here in the States. Quite a few people, you know, people that are into soccer, even some people that are not into soccer like that know about Ronaldo. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, he comes to Hollywood all the time and shit like that.
Right.
You know, he's a well-known star. When you see the man play, he's got that swag. You know, he just, his level of dominance, he's kind of like the LeBron James of soccer pretty much.
Right.
That's who he is.
Right.
Like, he's that dominant.
Right.
The way he moves, the hips, the legs, and everything. Let me see if we can pull up a video. Just type in.
I got you.
Yeah, go to video right quick. See if it shows like a short. Ronaldo's skills. Incredible Messi bicycle kick. There you go. Okay, let's see if we could pull something out of that, because you still got a residue of Israelites that remain in there. You got a lot of so-called Portuguese that are of Israelite descent, such as Ronaldo. Is it coming up?
Of course, it's being a little slow.
Might as well just went straight up to YouTube.
Better.
Yeah, it comes a commercial and shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, just go to YouTube, brother, and type in just Ronaldo, Ronaldo's skills. Cristiano, I think it's Cristiano Ronaldo or something. Yeah, Ronaldo. Yeah, Ronaldo's skills.
Let me get this one.
Yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo. Just type in Ronaldo's skills right quick. The reason why I want to bring this up, because you gotta understand, like, these are the spirits, these are Israelite spirits that are scattered abroad. It should right there. You see Ronaldo's skills?
This one.
Yeah, type in.
Some of the ultimate skills.
Yep. You just don't see just a little bit of it. You're not gonna see, you know, check out the whole
If you
thing.
write anything on your computer, you
Yeah,
need
let
to
that
get
bullshit. You know, everything is commercialized. Esau making money on everything. Now check this out. Now this is some of the images. That, you know, because people, of course, in America, soccer is not really well known like that, but now that's the man right there. That's Ronaldo. Tell me this is not an Israelite. Look. Look, look. Look.
Yeah, the way he's moving.
Look at the way he's moving. Tell me that's not an Israelite. So I played some soccer. I played a little bit of soccer when I was coming up as a youngster. That shit is not easy. Trust me. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. You know who moves like that? Brazilians. Brazilians are known for moving like that. Guess what Brazilians are? Asherites.
Yep.
And Brazilian, when you look up the word Brazil, let me tell you, look up the word Brazil. When you look up Brazilians, Asherites, it means happy. So they play with happiness.
Cross you up with his feet.
Look at that. Look at that. You see what I'm talking about? Look. And you see how he stands out, brother. He stands out on the field. I mean, but that's pretty much. Look at that. That's what you call swag. That's what you call it. Look. Now, but you know, you brothers got the gist of it. You know, that's, you know, Portugal. A lot of Israelite spirits remain in those places, man. Those are Israelites. You look at the Portuguese team filled with Israelites. Go ahead, brother. Let's go back.
It says, let me get back to it. Okay, some of these.
Back on the,
Oh yeah, let me get that back. It says, some of these Jews went to northern Europe, Italy, and Turkey, but most of them went to Muslim countries of northern and western Africa. These black Jews would naturally go to African countries, most of all because of less persecution, and they could disguise themselves easily among blacks.
Right. If it was talking about so-called Jew-rats, can Amalekites disguise themselves amongst so-called blacks?
Amongst the Africans.
Amongst the Africans. What is the so-called Africans' pigmentation?
Right.
It's dark skin.
Right.
So it's talking about those Jews that fled, were being expelled, right? The Spanish Inquisition, they were being expelled, that fled into Africa. Just talking about so-called Negroes, man. that was scattered. That's what it's talking about, man. So you seen a different migration. Now I got a precept. This is Matthew chapter 2. This is Matthew chapter 2, verse 11. It says, "And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gift, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned of the Most High in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt. And be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him." Why would he flee into Egypt? So he can hide in the midst of so-called Africans, Hamites, because of the similar pigmentation.
That's right.
So it was not a new thing to hide amongst the people that look like you, to hide from the people that really, for the most part, won't be able to easily recognize you from the others. Right? It says, verse 14, "When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt." You know what I'm saying? And verse 15, it says, "And when," because he was fleeing persecution. So that was a thing for Israel to flee. The old capital of Nigeria, Lagos. Well, Lagos go back to Portugal. Oh, see that? You see that? Hey, Shalom, brother. That's some good stuff, GMS Watchman. That's right. That's right, brother. And guess what? There's some more coming on that. We go, the last paragraph goes into that. Right? So you got a lot of Israelites. You got Judites, Benjamites, Levites in Portugal. And in my day, most of them don't look like us. So when you see a brother come out, hey, Shalom, Yahweh Shema Shabrakatah from out of Portugal, because it's going to happen. You know, that's why we're doing what we're doing. The prophets have always set the stage so that when things happen, Israel won't bug out. Because it's already been explained to them by the mouth of the Lord. So go ahead, Al.
It says, "These black Jews would naturally go to African countries, most of all, because of less persecution, and they could disguise themselves easily among blacks." RHMLs, or Yules, gives a graphic description of the Portuguese Jew, Baruch Spinoza. Middle-sized, good features, skin somewhat black.
Oh, that's the hold up. Read that again. What is the complexion of the Portuguese Jew? What's the complexion of the Portuguese Jew? Go ahead.
It says, RWHLs gives a graphic description of the Portuguese Jew, Baruch Spinoza.
Right.
Middle-sized, good features, skin somewhat black.
Skin somewhat black. Why? Because remember, we're not naturally as dark as the Hamites, but we different shades of brown. Go ahead.
Black curly hair.
Black curly hair. You know, woolly hair.
Long eyebrows of the same color, so that one might know by his looks that he was a descendant from Portuguese Jews.
Go ahead.
When the Jews were expelled from Spain, about 100,000 entered Portugal. They were permitted to enter under the condition that they pay the poll tax, with the understanding that they would leave the country within 8 months.
Persecution. Spanish Inquisition. Go ahead.
Also at this time, the king obligated himself to take the Jews wherever they desired at the termination of the 8 months. When the time expired, many Jews were stranded because the king did not provide enough ships in time. All the black Jews who were left behind were deprived of their freedom and sold into slavery.
See that? That's why we always make that statement, the first crops of slaves. We always make the statement that what? We always make the statement that what? The first crops of slave, the first crops of slaves that came into the shores of America came from what? Came from Spain. It's not out of nowhere that statement has always been made, because straight out of 1492, when you look, a lot of so-called Negroes, you know, Negroes, West Indians, and Haitians fled from Portugal and Spain and fled into the interiors of Africa. But the ones who couldn't make it were grabbed up. They were grabbed up and they were sent over here as slaves, man. So that's the reality, man. So as Columbus and them was moving, doing their own thing on one side, you know, coming over here, destroying our brothers over here, the Gadites and the Reubenites. On the other side, you had a lot of panic going on with Israelites Some of them had been Moors. They were already been taken down, fleeing back into Africa. Then later on, they were going to get picked up again, man. Yeah, so like it for that.
Yep. Just a second. Just a second. So lock it. Get this.
Yeah, I'm gonna get this. Give me a second. I'm gonna go straight to the speech there right quick. This is let me see. I'm gonna go to Revelation chapter 7. Revelation chapter 7, and I'm gonna go straight to 9. It says Revelation chapter 7 and 9. It says, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nation and kindred and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. So what is it talking about? It's talking about the scattered Israelites among all of Spain, Portugal. You know what I'm saying? So it's good to know these things, man. Like I said, because the white scholars they only know what they were taught, and some of them, they just telling the history that's favorable to their side of the story.
That's right. That's right.
Right, brother.
It says, when the Jews were expelled from Spain, about 100,000 entered Portugal.
Right.
They were permitted to enter under the condition that they pay the poll tax, with the understanding that they would leave the country within 8 months.
Right.
Also at this time, the king obligated himself to take the Jews wherever they desired at the determination of 8 months.
Right.
When the time expired, many Jews were stranded because the king did not provide enough ships in time. All the black Jews who were left behind were deprived of their freedom and sold into slavery. During which did not befall what the so-called Jews today, man. All right, they did not go into slavery, man. As a matter of fact, what they profess is that during the Holocaust was their slavery.
So that's contradicting the history, man. That history don't match up with the real history.
That's right.
So we got the real history. We know what we're talking about.
That's right.
Because the Spirit of the Lord is dealing with us.
That's right.
Keep going. That's the final paragraph, right?
Oh, right here.
Yeah. Because remember, this is just part 1. This part 1. Hopefully this will be like a 3-part series, you know, when we go into hidden history, you know what I'm saying? So you got to be patient, and you got to be into it, man, because without history, you just out there sounding like a parrot.
Yep.
You know, because people going to ask you questions about who's King Ferdinand. Do you know the history on Isabella? Do you know the history on the Moors? You need to be well versed on that. It's part of having knowledge, you know.
Which they had a hand in, you know, again conquesting, again conquering to get their position back. And again doing that. These are terms that they have in school, in history class, but we never figured it out. Renaissance, again birth.
That's right.
Reconquista, again conquer. I just learned something new today, brother. You know, again conquer. From who? Negroes and stuff that ruled over there, man.
That's right.
All right. It says, during the reign of King Jao II, or John II, 700 black Jews or Hebrew children were ruthlessly taken out.
See, they were ruthlessly taken out. So as far as like the oppression is nothing new. I mean, that's something that goes back thousands. Well, as recently as like 800 years now. Because we talking about 800 years by now. Go ahead.
It says, Hebrew children were ruthlessly taken away from their parents in Portugal and transported to the island of Santon, off the west coast of Africa.
Right, so remember like the brother GMS Washington was talking about, he's like, a lot of these names, the Portuguese names, you can see those names creep up in places like in West Africa, Nigeria, Lagos, and so on and so forth. Why? Because, and I was saying this, a lot of you know, Jakes from Nigeria, places like that, you know, if you were able to do some research, you could potentially find out that whatever tribe you come from came out of that persecution. You know, came straight out of Portugal. You could be an actual descendant of the Moors. That's why a lot of dudes find that out. You know, like, oh, you know what? I descend from the Moors, but remember, it goes further than that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, once upon a time we were Moors. That's part of the history. Right. But ultimately we were what? Ultimately we were Israelites.
That's right. That's right. Remember, Moors was a term put on Jake that was into Islam by the Arabs. And it says that in the same book, in Babylon and Timbuktu.
That's right.
All right? It says, let me get back to the point. It says, let me see. 700 black Hebrew children were ruthlessly taken away from their parents in Portugal and transported to the island of Santhome off the west coast of Africa.
Right. So when you see, Nigerian or African, you don't even know. The man probably lineage like mine. Example, actually, just keep reading. It's gonna say, go ahead.
This island is located near Nigeria.
Right. There's an actual island called Santhome located around Nigeria. Go ahead. Cameroon, which that's where my parents and my descendant, myself originally, well, not originally, you know what I'm saying, and this season come from, right? Go ahead.
In Gabon,
which that nation is right under Nigeria and Cameroon, which those are also Israelites. It's heavily populated by Judites, Benjamites, and Levites. Right?
It says Alan H. Godby says that the Portuguese founded the island of Santhome in 1471.
Right, and when you trace a lot of migration of these tribes in West Africa, you would find out that some of them still have it. Where they came, they would tell you, well, we once upon a time, like my particular tribe, they actually found out that there wasn't always in Africa. You know what I'm saying? Clearly, there wasn't always in Cameroon. They migrated into that place, man.
That's right.
But they came from the upwards of Northern Africa.
Right.
What were they doing in Northern Africa like we read in the past one? They were in the midst of the Berbers as Moors.
That's right.
That's what it is. So, but again, you don't get attached to that. Like, oh, I'm a Moor.
That's right.
No, you take pride in being an Israelite, not being no Moor, because as a Moor, you were indulging into different doctrines.
That's right.
And that's why Yahweh Shemel Shah wasn't with us. He let us be captive, right? Right.
It says,
I got one more precept, bro. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28. We always go back to that because it covers that. The first ships to bring us as slaves, they came from Spain, man. It's Deuteronomy 28 and 68. It says, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen, slave men, and bondwomen, slave women, and no man shall buy you, no man shall save you."
One of the brothers put, Nigerian tribes are preaching Hebrew law now. You can't suppress the spirit forever.
That's right, you can't.
Miguel Ortiz.
That's right. You can't suppress the spirit. It's that time now. Because what did the Lord say? Hey, Akins, it's not a coincidence that we're doing this now. The Lord said when the word is preached around the four corners, then the end shall come.
That's right.
So this is a sign. We have to embrace this. We have to embrace the fact that we live in a time where the elect of Yasha'Allah, Bakari of Yasha'Allah, are being gathered across the four winds, because this is the time of the end. That's why you see these race wars are getting ready to kick in. I hope you brothers have either watched the Purge or getting ready to watch the Purge. Right, because the first Purge, that was a great movie. Yeah. If you know what you're looking for, that was a great movie. Yeah. If you don't know what you're looking for, and you just focusing on the acting, yes, the acting was terrible. But that's not what we went to see the movie for. Yeah. We went to see the movie for what they was going to put in the movie.
That's right, that's right.
That was a great movie if you're a spiritual man of the Lord, man.
That's right.
So we advise all the occupants to watch that movie, see that movie, the Purge, the first Purge.
It's actually better than all of them.
Without a doubt, because it's more precise. It brings the realness of Babylon, man.
Like all the curses they put in there, man.
Yeah.
The curses of Israel.
And they put Negroes and Hispanics, all of you. It's not just niggas. No, it's you Negroes and Hispanics and Native Americans here and there. But mostly they tell you. Yeah, that's right. Hey, Shalom, brother Ashlow. Yep. That's right. Yep. I'm gonna wrap this up.
It says, In the year 1484, King John II of Portugal, who reigned from 1481 through 1495, offered the Jews of his kingdom the choice of baptism or settling at Santon.
Right. You know what that was? Baptism into Christianity, meaning you gonna start eating that pork, baby.
Yeah.
And you know, back then when Israel heard that, the true Israelites to the core, when they heard that whole pork shit, it was, I'm getting the fuck out of here, or you want to kill me, man.
Yep.
Right.
It says, or settling at Santon. Multitudes of Jews were sent to this island during the reign of King John II. These Jews, Judeos, as the Portuguese called them, are serious, reserved, and wealthy, holding most of the trade in their hands.
Right, and you will see that when you go into West Africa, they're super serious, and they are the one who pretty much hold all the merchandise. And then when you go to these places in Portugal as well, like you see some of the sects. I mean, right now it's a lot different now because the Edomites have hoarded all the riches, and to really make that type of money as a Jake, you gotta be a part of these societies, man. You gotta be a part of Is they good? Oh yeah,
they come
with that. Right, you gotta be a part of the Illuminatis or the Boule and all that. You know, so that's the only way to keep your wealth, so to speak, right now, man, in these times, because the Lord is getting ready to make a full The Lord is getting ready to make a full transition of power. So he's had Esau hoard all of the riches, and then he's going to translate those riches. Let's get that. Sirach 10. I'm gonna get that.
That's right,
yeah. Sirach 10 and 8.
This is Sirach 10 in verse 8. It says, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches gotten by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another.
That's right.
Yeah, the rulership is translated from one people to another. All right. When you read it, it says because of unrighteous dealings. Who did unrighteous dealings? Esau, man. You know, and part of his huge unrighteous dealings was what? Him dealing with the sword and killing Jake. All right, because if he couldn't defeat Jake, Jake wouldn't listen to him.
Nah.
So it had to be, you know, part of that had to be death and destruction. It says, in unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches gotten by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. And that's how Esau's MO. That's how Esau works up into getting in the rulership. By trickery, deceit, death, and destruction.
That's right. Hey, bro, let's go back.
Yep.
Wrap it up.
Condos.
Oh, that was it?
Con.
All right. Well, I'm bringing this close up with this scripture. Again, this is just part 1. The Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 10. It says, but actually I'm going to start at 9. It says, they shall come with weeping and with supplication will I lead them. It's talking about the nation of Israel. But actually, I'm going to start at 8. I'm going to finish with this. Jeremiah 31, verse 8. It says, behold, I will bring them forth. So like I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the coast of the earth. And with them the blind and the lame, the woman with child, and her that travaileth with child together, a great company shall return thither. They shall come with weeping and with supplications will I lead them. I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters in a straight way. Wait, that straight way goes back to, you know, coming to that straight gate. You know, it's coming through Yahweh Shah. Yahweh Shah is the straight way. Because remember, Yahweh Shah told Paul, when Paul was kicking against the pricks, when he blinded him, he told him what? He told him after 3 days, go and meet Ananias in a street called Straight. It's that straight way. Because that's when he met Ananias and Yahweh Shah started to deal with him. You know? So it says, wherein they shall not stumble, for I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. It says, hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations, and declare it in the isles or islands far off, and say, he that scattered Israel will gather him, and keep him as a shepherd doeth his flock. For the Lord has redeemed Jacob, Yahweh, and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than him.
Yeah, he that scattered him will gather.
That's right.
All right, so the Lord scatters us in a curse, so he's the only one that can get us out of the curse.
That's right. That's why we got to come back to Yahweh Shem Shai. You know what I'm saying? As Israelites, you're an Israelite according to your spirit. Your spirit would tell you if you're an Israelite, you know, because the spirit is gonna be able to understand and to grasp, to comprehend the word and the breakdown of these words the proper way.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is. You know, again, that's all. We won't conclude here. We're gonna stop here. That's part one, of course, of diaspora, the Hebrew Israelite diaspora, which is really the only diaspora that matters. And of course, the subtitle is the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and Portugal. So we got a lot of some good stuff, some good historical facts that we learn. You could always bring that up in your spiritual fight when you're out there, regardless of where you are. You know, you're armed with more knowledge. You know what I'm saying? These are weapons from Yahweh Shem El Shah. So, you know, Lord willing, next week we'll go into part 2 of it. You brothers got Babylon and Timbuktu. Read it. Read the whole chapter. The expulsion, the title was at page 115. Expulsion, right? Expulsion of the Jews in Spain. So when we go into it, you can keep up with us. You know, if you have something that you know what I'm saying, put on the comment board. We'll bring it out and discuss it through the spirit. All right. So with that, we're gonna say Kal Halal Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Hakodash. We're gonna give double honors, of course, to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom, salutation to all you sincere occupants, of course, of 4 winds, pushing the truth and sincerity of heart. Of course, we are our fellow servants, Kasam Gun.
So you on Allah?
That's right, from the DC camp, man. Stay strong, stay faithful. Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahshua, Barakatam, Ba'ashem, Hakodash. Shalom.